Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. So at the end of the video, I'm going to show you my pricing for these cake pops. Now, and do not worry, the entire video is not going to be in this shorts vertical format. The only reason is because I only ended up filming this portion for a short, but I decided I better throw this in so you guys know how to actually make the cake pop base itself. Now, if you want a more detailed kind of lesson and instruction on this, then definitely go and check out this video in the right hand corner where I go more in depth. But basically, I had a lot of leftover vanilla cake, so if you guys have leftover cake tops, this is the perfect project for you. If you don't, you can make your cake from scratch if you'd like to, but honestly, cake pops are one of those things that you can definitely get away with using either cake from the grocery store that's left over, or you can also use cake mix from a box. It's really not going to make a difference. Just make your cake as per usual, and then you can go ahead and follow the rest of the instructions. Make sure that whatever cake you're using is fully cooled. The less amount of icing and fillings that are on it, the better, because you will need to reincorporate this. So the whole idea here is we're trying to kind of make a Play-Doh almost like texture with your cake pop. It is going to be far less homogeneous, obviously, in texture. There's a little bit more texture to it, but you want it to be able to form all of these different shapes. So in order to do so, what I do first is I crumble up all of the cake, and then I go ahead and add in either some buttercream or ganache. You can also do jam. It's really about whatever flavorings you want. Depending on how dry your cake is, the flavoring might not be as present. This might sound a little backwards and strange, but actually the drier your cake is, the more of a flavor profile you're going to be able to put into your cake pops. The more moist your cake pop is, the less filling it needs to adhere together. So that is the reason behind that. I'm going to be making 3 different shapes today. The first shape you just saw me make with an ice cream scoop, and then I basically molded it into a ball as you would with Play-Doh. And then this next one, I'm using a cake pop mold from My Little Cake Pops. I absolutely love this cake pop mold. This is not a sponsored video, but I really do love this collection. It helps me make things very easily, and that's going to be our little mini cake that we're going to do later on. And then I have my Cakesicle mold. The Cakesicle mold you can find on Amazon. Super easy. And what I like about this is if you mess up your cake pop texture, more than likely your Cakesicle is still going to turn out. Now, what are you looking for in terms of cake pop texture? You're looking for something that comes together relatively easy and is not too mushy. So don't add in too much ganache or filling or whatever you're using. Go a little bit at a time. You want the dough to just kind of come together a little bit. If you add too much of it, then what tends to happen is it starts drooping and falling apart and losing its shape. If that happens and you added too much, you're going to need to add more cake. And that's always a shame because you might not have more cake. So if you're just starting out, put some cake aside so that just in case you do add too much, you have some to put back in. Some people like to actually brush the entire Cakesicle mold with the white chocolate first, then put that in the freezer or the fridge and then fill it with the cake. I personally like doing it this way. I find it a lot simpler. And then you're going to slide in the popsicle stick. You can use the fancy ones like this, or you can just use a regular popsicle stick. You're going to place all of these into your freezer if you're trying to be expedient, but the fridge is probably the better choice if you're not going to be dipping these very quickly, because you're going to have to kind of thaw them in the fridge anyway. If you go from freezer straight into the chocolate, things will start to crack. So I'm going to get my chocolate ready here. This is white chocolate that I've actually dyed green, but you can also use candy melts. Candy melts are a great starter chocolate. They don't taste as good, I would say, as the Calibo white chocolate that I am using, but they dry a lot faster. So you'll see that I added in just a little bit of vegetable oil. You can also use coconut oil or whatever other flavorless oil to thin out this mixture. The problem is if you've ever had cake pop cracking or you've had a weird texture on the outside of your chocolate, that's usually from the fact that you haven't added in enough oil to make sure it's thin enough and just has the right texture. By the way, how do you know when to actually take it out of the fridge? You'll know because it's firm enough and you feel like you can dip it into the chocolate without anything sliding off. Now, when I'm doing these Cakesicles, I actually dip this in a little bit differently than I will with the cake pops. I dip this and then you'll notice I kind of drag the back of the Cakesicle along the edge of the glass. This might be the bowl or glass, whatever it is that you're using. I can do this because I don't need the other side of the Cakesicle to be perfect. Whereas when I'm making these monster cake pop balls, I do things a little bit differently. First of all, I took that little lollipop stick, placed it into the chocolate, and then I stab it directly into the top of the cake ball. This just makes sure that it's actually adhered properly. We don't want any of the sticks falling out. Nothing is worse than when you're trying to eat the cake pop and it's just completely falling off. Now notice my technique here. I'm whirling that excess chocolate off by really making sure that I'm using a motion that doesn't fling the cake pop right off. I want to let that chocolate dry just a little smidge. I don't want too much excess because when I place this on here, I don't want them just sliding off and falling off. But it is a really, really tricky kind of timing bit because you don't want the sprinkles to just start falling and cascading off at the same time. You need it kind of just to hit that temperature where things will stick very quickly but not slide off. Much of this will be trial and error for you, but once you get it, it's super easy peasy. Now this is Color Mill I'm using. I gotta say, I'm not a giant fan of this. I do think they have some really great colors, and I do love that you can use this directly in chocolate. You can't just use any old gel food colorant. It has to be something that is compatible with oil. So yes, I do like it, but I do find that you have to use a lot of the Color Mill product in order to get these vibrant colors. So that's why I'm not a huge fan, but I do still recommend it for certain things. I was getting a little messy here. I really should have worn my gloves for this, but when you are using those mini cake pop cake boards, just slide it on, make sure that there is chocolate on that side so that it adheres really, really well, and whirl off the excess. It's really important that you whirl off the excess for that, because if you don't, you're gonna end up with a pool of chocolate on the bottom of that cake board when you flip it over. I really wanted to use a yummy dark chocolate for all of the black details going on these cake pops, so I decided to add in just a little bit of black cocoa powder into my dark chocolate. And you'll notice it's not quite jet black, but as time goes on, it gets more and more black. You'll also notice that I used an immersion blender because I need to make sure that everything is super silky smooth since these are going onto our cake pops. And if you don't do that, things will get stuck in the piping bag and it just won't look very nice. I did put this into a piping bag, and technically this isn't a tipless piping bag, but it's working out pretty well. So go ahead and fill your piping bag with that melted black chocolate. Well, now it's black, and go ahead and put on your details. And then I like to add in a little sprinkle dot for the glint on the eye. The reason that I do this is so that I don't have to melt a whole batch of white chocolate just to get that little piece of white. I don't have to make royal icing. It's just something super easy, and I know the color is not going to bleed. Because that black chocolate is already melted to the perfect temperature and consistency, I am going to use it right away on my other set of cake pops. I am all about efficiency, so I'm just creating a drip, and actually the chocolate is very, very easy to work with. We didn't make this so drippy. If I was actually doing this on a real cake, I would add a lot more of that flavorless oil to the chocolate so it would be quite drippy. But this way it's able to hold its shape for a little bit longer, and that way we're able to control the drip, and it's such a small drip, so we do want to be able to do that. I decided that my little Frankenstein looked a little bit plain. He was kind of missing that Frankenstein vibe, so I decided to add on this stitching here. I don't really know what I would call this, but I'm gonna call it stitching. And this is a very loved bottle of airbrush color, and I go a little bit lighter than what I think I need because airbrush color is always so much darker. I'm really directing the airbrush color near the hair and also near the bottom. I want to keep the majority of the inside of the face that other green color. To jazz up these little tiny mini cake pops, I'm putting on some edible glitter, and yes, this is fully edible. Did you know back in the day, disco dust wasn't actually considered fully edible? Yeah, but I put it on everything back then, and I definitely consumed a lot of it. And somebody asked me the other day, actually, many of you asked me the other day, what do you mean it wasn't edible? It's not that it was unsafe, it's not that it was going to hurt you, it's just that you can't actually digest it. You might be wondering why I didn't just add on these details right away when the chocolate was still all soupy and able to have things added to the top, and it's just because I wanted to be a little bit more precise with those sprinkles, and I also wanted that glitter to only be on the bottom part of the chocolate. Here are the finished products. Let me know down in the comments below which one is your favorite. In order to store these cake pops, I actually find that they're perfectly fine for a full week in the fridge if you would like to keep them for that long. They really retain the moisture very, very nicely because all of that chocolate is protecting them. Let's get into the pricing for these cake pops. I've been exploring local bakeries lately, doing my research, and I've got to tell you guys, the pricing, I mean, in life blows my mind a little bit, but really in the bakery world, I've seen things jump up quite a bit. Products are just costing more. Everything is just costing more, so we need to follow suit. The Monster Cake Pops would be $4 Canadian each. The Mini Cake Pops would be $6 each, and the Frankenstein Cakesicles would be $8 each. And I repeat, this is all in Canadian dollars. As a reminder, there's only a few more weeks left until the Bake Fest, so if you want to know all of my YouTube baking brand secrets, then definitely join me. I will put all the information down below in a pinned comment. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!